Hi there, I am Adam Kirbas. This is another episode of my podcast. This is a warm July day in Ordu in Turkey. We're still in the pandemic. I hope you all are doing fine. Yesterday I did not make an episode. Yesterday it was Sunday and I decided to some sort of take or make a break every Sundays. I think it's not very, why it's not bad just to relax at one day in a week and then start freshly into the new week through Mondays, which I think is not, and we will, therefore, here we are. However, today we will continue, I think, privileges. We only talked about the first part, and in the end, we came to the conclusion that privileges work a lot of barriers, and that these barriers determine access to resources. This is what we said is very important. Privileges are not something, are of course something people perceive, assume, and so on, but nevertheless, privileges are always something about resources. This is not fiction. Those barriers, they have to be fathomable. Those barriers, they are historic, and therefore privileges are historic barriers which include and exclude people from access to certain resources according a special characteristic they either have or do not have, and therefore create an historic understanding of a distinction, especially a distinction of naturalism, or a distinction of a natural distribution of resources in a society, which then has an effect on social and power relationships in a society. This is what we said is very crucial, because barriers, this is where we can determine privileges, because this is where you can really make concrete one privilege, because privilege is indeed a very dangerous, or in a way a very talked about topic, and according to some people privilege is everything. Well, if you declare privileges as everything, then you cannot fight them. It is very important in a society, especially in a society based on merits, that you exactly have to identify those barriers, and those barriers, of course, have to be unfair. The access or the inclusion and exclusion of those barriers. This is something we did not say, but some sort of this implies that inclusion and exclusion is not based on merits, but on superficial characteristics, which are for many not justifiable. One thing we will talk about is gender, but as well as some sort of divinity and so on. This is, I think, very important that those privileges are in a way historic, and that they are not based on merit. So that we have to say that these inclusions and exclusions, that they are unfair. We talked a lot about feminism, but nevertheless we will some sort of briefly talk about it again. Feminism, this is the separation between man and woman according to their biological sex, according to their physical appearance. This is very important. The barrier has to be visible, or in a way founded in reality, so that we can really talk about privileges, because this it would lead into nowhere, or into an open sea, if we would some sort of talk about presumed or assumed uh, beings or circumstances, and then would derive from that any privileges whatsoever or any disadvantages. I mean, of course, what I'm talking about is transsexuality and so on. I mean, whether and this question whether if you can really call yourself a woman or a man or whatsoever if it is not founded in your genes, if it is not founded in your biology. However, I mean, these are all issues, but what we are talking about, and I some sort of uh, made it clear through my argumentation is that I am here rather, that I am in this gender discussion following uh, Simone de Beauvoir, this French philosopher, which I think pretty much understood it. I mean, and I think generally in French philosophy, people have a more positive view on sexuality, not only on uh, male sexuality, but as well as on female sexuality. And I still uh, think that, or I'm, and there is a lot of research supporting that a healthy sexuality is important for your mental and physical well-being. However, what we have talked about are barriers, and those barriers we will identify as well. I mean, these barriers were clear. One clear barrier was that women were not allowed to vote. This is a clear barrier, and this was determined by the sex, by gender. This was rather assumed. I mean, there are many reasons or explanations why the women did not vote. One explanation was that her man or her husband would know what she would vote for, or that she should rather vote for men, or another was that women would not know anything about politics, were in that sense naive, and so you could not let them vote. The same happened then later with blacks in North America and so on. So there was a clear barriers, and as well barriers like having not equal rights. These are still to this very day. I mean the gender pay gap is not rather a barrier, because the gender pay gap, which which uh, which gives women less pay for the same work. I mean, this is indeed a disadvantage, but this is not a barrier. A barrier would be mean, or a clear barrier would mean that more men become CEOs or heads of companies, or in politicians, because of an innate structure, or because of a male dominated structure within a society which bars women actively from obtaining higher positions. I mean, this is what we are talked about, and I referred to those who wanna read more about this with the word intersectionality. It is indeed a very interesting topic. This is about how women are being disadvantaged in institutions and so on. And there's of course a lot of literature, but we have to be aware of one thing, that there's a barrier, and the gender pay gap is a disadvantage, but not a barrier. But then in extension of this, that women are actively barred from getting or obtaining higher jobs and so on. These are the barriers, or that women in some countries around the world have not even the same rights as men, and so on. So, and this has of course its natural foundation in the society. This is how we deal with, or that women then placed in under certain circumstances, and you could say that women, we said it, that they're one influence, or you would say an indirect effect of this barrier, is that women still do not seek seek male occupations or considered male occupations, and this because of this assumption or this belief that they would not be as smart as men and would then not be able to keep up and so on, so that there is this belief where which still plays in the minds of everyone, and then some sort of still is is responsible for this power relationships in the society. Foucault said a very interesting thing that those power relationships that they are written in your own body, and this is what later other post-structuralists then took over and so on. So this plays indeed a very important issue, especially how you believe. The next barrier I detected was financial. This is indeed you have to be some sort of questionable, because we made or I introduced 4 barriers. No, it was 5 barriers, and financial I separated from religion as well as from aristocratic. These are in one category. I separated because I think that financial privileges are not only a bit difficult to fathom, but as well as they work differently in that sense that money, especially if we consider inclusion and exclusion, this means that everyone who has money has access or is and those who do not have are barred from it. It is true indeed that and we have pretty much detailed statistics which show who has the most money or who owns most of the money within a society. This is true, but financial privileges do not really arose from a racial disparity or whatsoever. This is really everyone who has access or or has the money has access to special entrances and so on. Think about colleges and so on. This is indeed, especially in the US as well, this is indeed an issue about money. Even despite the fact of this recent college admission scandal, nevertheless, you could say, it is of course about merits, but as well as it is about money, and this is, I think, that we have to separate it from religious as well as aristocratic privileges, because religious and aristocratic privileges is not about your financial means, and with financial privileges that is really about money. This is about the wealth you have. This is really opens you doors, and these doors, they are not open to everyone, and others are barred from this. Nevertheless, there is one very famous smelling saying, and this said that money does not smell. So this means that everyone who has money, no matter he is Asian, white or black, has access to these resources, or can walk through those barriers where others cannot. In order to understand what is meant for this, we could easily say this. For example, the having access or owning a special good. This is what has been made in the economics or simple economics. If you want to be or if you want to make your good or product valuable, the smartest way to do is do not produce it en masse, but only make a few of them, and you will see that this raises the value of an object. This is what's been done with sport cars. For example, there are only a few made of sport cars, and people somehow collect them and because they are rare, because not everyone has access